Good morning, everybody. Today I want to talk about your center of gravity and why it matters. So I want you to think about a canoe. Have you ever solo canoed? I used to do that years ago and I absolutely loved it. But you pretty much had to paddle from the center of the canoe if you wanted any kind of stability. So, for fun, we used to stand in the back and stand up in the back, and the bow would be way up in the air, but you certainly couldn't move through the water very easily, and certainly not very safely. And in fact, there were times that we would fall out. And life is very much the same way. You must be aware of where your center of gravity is. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story, and that will illustrate this in terms of how we're thinking. So most of you may know that my dog Pedro had to have emergency surgery, back surgery, a couple of weeks ago. He was suddenly, his back end was completely paralyzed. He had blown a disc and he had to go in for emergency surgery, and now he's walking again. He's doing very, very well. The last 3 days, his legs, his back legs have been shaking a lot, which they weren't doing initially after the surgery. So in my mind now, we're going to talk about my center of gravity. You could also think about it in terms of where your attention is. So about 3 days ago, we have been hyper vigilant about Pedro. He is basically living in a beach wagon in the house so that we have more freedom. We can pull him around wherever we are. But the other day we let him out and he was walking around and he was doing just fine. And literally I turned away for just a moment and he had attempted to jump on the couch, which is not good. He's not supposed to be jumping. And he didn't really jump, but he just sort of made a little weak attempt because he's still very weak. And he just sort of fell back a little bit. And I felt horrible. I felt horrible that had happened. And then the next day, it seemed like the shaking of his back legs started. Well, let me tell you, I have lived that moment again and again and again in my imagination. I have beat myself up. I have wondered if I have caused any damage. I have felt ashamed. I have wanted to not look at it. I have wanted to dwell on it. I have I have thought about the future. So what you can see is that my center of gravity my center of gravity was moved to the back of the canoe, if you will, the past, living that moment again and again and again in my imagination. And not only that, then I would switch to the front part of the canoe, thinking about the future. Is Pedro going to recover fully? Have I somehow hurt him? Now I'm living in the future. I'm everywhere but in the present moment, right in the center of the canoe where there's stability. So I don't have any idea if what he did hurt him or not. I have no idea. So I can live in a stressful story about that for sure. And if I do, I'm going to suffer. Or I can be clear and live in the moment and deal with whatever is the case with Pedro. Maybe it did hurt him. Maybe it didn't hurt him. But living in the past or the future again and again and again does nothing but cause me stress. So can you see how that works? Can you see how maybe you're living a conversation you had with a colleague or a spouse or a friend that was stressful, and you're reliving that conversation again and again and again? Or maybe you're rehearsing a difficult conversation that you're about to have with someone again and again and again and again. Sure, it's helpful to be prepared. We can prepare, but when we dwell in a stressful story, then we're either dwelling in the past or the future, and that's an imagination. That's our imagination. It's not the truth. So I want to invite you today to come back to the center of the canoe of your life and live there. Live from that place. Put your center of gravity there. Put your attention there, because that's where you're going to find the most clarity, the most flow. That's where you're going to be able to find the good, the true, and the beautiful. So I want to invite you, along with myself, in this particular case with Pedro, that we come back to the present moment where I'm sitting here shooting this little video, and Pedro is walking all around. His back end is not shaking this morning. He's moving very easily. There's no problem in this moment. So I invite you to do the same. I invite you to move back to the center of your canoe and be aware throughout the day where your attention is. It's everything. Your attention is everything. So be aware of that today. Thank you so much, friends. I'm Carla Royal, a mindset and performance coach, and I invite you to visit carlaroyal.com. Thank you. Have a good day.